Do you want to learn how to build a full-stack e-commerce platform that truly stands out using Next.js, Tailwind CSS, ShadCN, and Stripe? Well, in this tutorial, I'll show you how to create a sleek, modern online store with the most up-to-date technologies. We'll design stunning product pages, integrate smooth interactions, and implement a secure checkout flow that not only looks great, but also delivers a seamless shopping experience. Whether you are a developer looking to expand your skills, an entrepreneur aiming to launch your online business, or simply curious about building scalable web applications, this project is for you. By the end of this video, you'll have a professional-grade e-commerce platform. But before we dive in, let me ask you a question. Do you want to master complex subjects like algorithm and data structures through immersive hands-on lessons? Well, today's sponsor, Brilliant, is here to make that a reality. I firmly believe that the best way to truly grasp challenging concepts is by actively engaging with them, and Brilliant does exactly that. Their platform isn't about just sitting back and watching videos. It is designed to get you solving problems and building a deep understanding through interactive exercises. I was amazed at how their algorithm and data structures course completely transformed the way I approach tough challenges and even laid the groundwork for acing my software engineer interviews. And here's the kicker. You can try all of what Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days. And if you decide to continue, you'll get 20% off an annual premium subscription if you use the link in the description. So if you're ready to revolutionize the way you learn, click the link in the description and check out Brilliant today. Okay everyone, so let's get started building the project. So I have here an empty folder opened inside of VS Code, and I want to open up our terminal over here, and I want to run the command npx create next app, and then I'm gonna install the latest version of Next.js. So this is going to ask us a couple questions. Sometimes it might ask you to install a newer version of create next app. I'm gonna press enter. Then it's gonna ask us what's the name of our project. I want to create this project inside of the directory that we are already inside of, so I'm going to press dot. Then I do want to use TypeScript, I do want ESLint, and even though this project uses Tailwind CSS, I'm going to put no over here because the create next app command installs Tailwind version 3, and the newest version of Tailwind is Tailwind v4, so we're going to have to install Tailwind manually in order to get access to the newer version. Then we're going to press no for this, yes for this, and no for this, and no for this as well. Now, while that is installing, let's actually set ourselves up to install the newer version of Tailwind CSS. And the way I do this is the Tailwind CSS documentation has a really nice explanation of all the commands you need to use to install Tailwind in its newest version. Make sure that I'm going to put this link in the description. Make sure you are in the V4 part of the documentation over here. You'll go to installation. On the getting started section, we'll go to framework guides, then Next.js, and all we have to do is we just have to copy this commands over here and paste it here, and it will install all of Tailwind's libraries. And then we want to create a post css.config.mjs file, so I'll create it over here, and we want to copy all of this code and just paste it inside of here. Perfect. Now let's see if there's anything else. Yes, so we have to import Tailwind CSS at the top of our globals, our globals.css file over here, just so that it actually uses all of the Tailwind classes that we write. Now, if you're familiar with my tutorials, I don't actually go over myself writing the Tailwind CSS and all of the styling because I feel like that doesn't really matter for the video. The video is more functionality wise. So what I do is I write the components and then I cut to me having the CSS classes written down. And if you want to use the same styling as I do in this project, all of the code will be in the description, so you can very easily just go ahead and copy and paste the styling so that you can focus primarily on learning the functionality instead of the classes. So I'm going to close this up over here, and we now should have Tailwind set up in our project. Now, what we want to do is we want to install ShadCN. And for those who don't know, ShadCN is a really nice UI library that corresponds and complements Tailwind CSS in a really nice way. ShedCN allows you to have access to pre-made components that have their own styling. And if you wanna, you don't have to download the entire library. It's not like Material UI where you install a huge library full of components. You just install the ones that you're gonna use. So we're gonna be using a couple ShedCN components for our project just to make the UI look better. So in order to set up ShedCN in our project, we want to run the command npx ShedCN at latest to get the latest version, and then run init. When I do this, you'll see that it will ask us which color we want to use as our base color. I'm gonna set it as neutral. Then because I'm using React 19, maybe there will be some packages that will have some conflicts with that. So we're gonna choose the legacy peer dependencies as the option, and it will initialize a ShedCN instance in our project. Now, what does that mean? Well, it basically means that every time we want to use a ShedCN component, we can install that component in our project. And it also created this lib folder over here with this utils file that it just helps set up ShedCN in our project. Perfect. Now we can get that out of the way. So the first thing I want to do is I want to set up our layout.tsx. So inside of here, obviously because this is a Next.js project, we're setting up the root layout of our project, and the children over here is the entire code base that we're going to write with all the pages depending on the route. So what I want to do is inside of this body, I want to wrap the children around with a main tag, which will help us put some styling that goes along all of the different routes. But above this, we want to actually call a component we're going to create called Navbar component. Now we're going to create this component in a folder that I'm going to create outside of the app folder. And this folder is going to be called the components folder. Now here we're going to actually put all of our ShedCN components and also all of our own components that we might want to use in the project. So I'm going to create here the Navbar component. And inside of here, I want to export const navbar and generate a simple div so that we can import this component over here. Perfect. Now let's go back to the navbar. Instead of using a div, I actually want to use a nav tag, and we'll put a div inside of it. Now this div will contain the logo for our project. If you remember from the demo, we didn't actually have a logo. I just put the name of the website, which I'm gonna call my Ecommerce, but you can call it whatever you want. And we want to make this logo or name be a link. Now a link is going to be a component we're going to import from NextLink, and it will help us use or turn images and text into navigation items. So for example here, the title, my Ecommerce, will become a link when we wrap it around with the link component. Now I need to pass an href to it. So when you click on the logo or the title, we just want to go back to the main page, right? Now if we go over here, we're not running the project yet. So let's run npm run dev, and we should see that we'll have the boilerplate code for a normal Next.js application, but we should see now this navbar that was created and the title link over here that if I click on it, let me go to another route and I should click on it, it brings us back to the home page. Now let's go back over here and let's continue creating the navbar. I want to put a div below this that will contain the different links that we're having in the project. So I mean the different pages. So this is going to have the link to the home page, to the products page, and to the checkout page. So I'm just going to list out all of those links. I'll make one to the home page and I'll copy the same href. Then I'm going to copy this entire thing, just paste it twice, and we'll make a link to the products page, one to the checkout page, and we'll have to change the href. So I'll make the products page have the products route when we create it, and the checkout page will have the checkout route when we create it as well. Now we should see all of them over here. Now you can see that when I go to the checkout page, there's no page with this route. So I want to create all of the different components that are going to serve the different routes, right at the beginning, even though we're gonna implement them one by one. So to do that, I'm gonna come over here and we'll go to the app folder over here and we'll create the folder that is gonna represent each of the routes. Now the home route over here, this one will just be rendered by the page.tsx file, so we don't have to do anything, but we'll make a products folder and we'll make a checkout folder. Now, on both of them, we want to create a page.tsx file so that it renders an actual component whenever someone goes to that route. Now, on both of them, we're going to export a default function and we'll call it products page, at least for this one. And we'll just return a div for now. And we'll do the exact same thing on this one, but we'll change this to checkout page. We can put some sort of text on each of them to check to see if it's actually changing the pages. And you should see that it actually is. If I go to the products page, we render the products text. If I go to the checkout, we render this. And if I go home, it shows the base code that comes with the create next tab command. Perfect. Let me close all of these and let's go back to the Navbar. So the Navbar is only going to have one more section. And this section we don't actually want to touch for now because this section is the one that is going to involve the cart information, and that will be something that comes way later. So we'll keep it as it is right now, but we're also going to add the styling for the Navbar, at least for what we have right now, so that we can already see the project as it is supposed to be styled. Perfect. So I added here all of the Tailwind CSS classes. Again, I'm not going to show myself writing them, so feel free to just copy all of the ones that I put. And the styling isn't completely done yet, but you can see there's already something over here. What we want to do now is we want to go back to the layout and we want to add the styling for the layout component. And perfect, I just pasted it. It was just these two class names over here. Now, let's start building the homepage, because the homepage is primarily just styling, but it helps us get rid of whatever this is that came with the project for us. So I'm going to delete all of the, everything that we have in our page.tsx. Let's delete everything. And let's just create a div that is going to hold all of the information. So let's think about what the homepage is going to be like. So the homepage, what I want it to be is I want it to have an image of one of our products over here, some text as well, explaining what the website is. Like it's an e-commerce website. It's the store. You can buy products with a button to go check all of the products. And then in the bottom, I also want to have a carousel of images of the different products we have, constantly going through and scrolling. Now, the thing is, those images you saw in the demo, I didn't pre-put them there. They're not images that I put onto my code. They're actual images of the actual products. So to make the entire website, we have to have access to the product information. And you might be thinking, where do we create the products? Well, the place we're going to be creating them is on Stripe. So Stripe is going to be handling the checkout functionality for allowing users to actually purchase products in our website. And it is also going to be where we're going to create our products to display on our website, making it super easy for us to add new products. You just go to Stripe and you create a product there, and that new product will appear on the website. So what I need you guys to do is to create a Stripe account. It's completely free to do so, and also we're going to be using test mode on Stripe. While setting up your account, you might get confused sometimes, asking if you want to create a business. You don't need to have a business to create a Stripe account. Just follow along the instructions and you'll be able to create an account just like me. Then you want to create a new account inside of Stripe. I'm going to call this Ecom Tutorial, and I'm going to choose my country of operation as Canada, but you choose whatever country you're in. Then I'm going to click create, and this is going to create a new Stripe account. When you get to your new Stripe account, you want to just go to the dashboard, and inside of here, we'll click on, first of all, accept all, then got it, close all of this. And you see we have these two keys over here. They are extremely important because they are what is going to allow us to connect our Stripe account with our project. Now, for now, we're not going to touch on them because we just want to create the products first. So I'm going to click here on product catalog. and you see we have 0 products. So I'm going to click on create product. Now for the product, we need a name. The first product I'm going to create is actually this one over here. So I have this list of not list, it's just like a group of 9 images, I believe, for the products I used in the demo. I got this from Google. I can put this in the repository if you guys want to just use the same images as me, but I would recommend actually creating different products than I am. I'm going to create the same ones from the demo though. So the first product I want to create is this t-shirt saying I love Canada. So I'm going to create a product called I love Canada t-shirt. Then for description, you want to put some generic description, cool t-shirt, showing support for Canada, something like this. And then just know that maybe you want to use the description in your actual code, but you don't have to. However, the description you put here will appear in the checkout when users are trying to buy this product. Then you want to put an image for the product. So I'm going to click on upload, and I want to select the image for my product. While that's uploading, I want to choose the pricing option. So Stripe allows a lot of different pricing options. I want to make products that are one-off, which means it's not a recurring payment like a SaaS product or service. So you choose the amount, whatever amount you want here. I'm going to put $29.99. And you can see that Stripe also offers different pricing options. You can actually put a different price depending on the currency, which is pretty cool. However, we don't want to do that. We want to keep it as it is. So this is the process for creating a Stripe product. You just put the title, the description, the price, and an image. And you click add product, and you should see that it was created. Now, I'm not going to show myself creating the other 9 products. I'll be back in a second when it's done, but I recommend you guys taking some time to make the products you guys want on the website. Perfect. As you can see, I created all of the 9 products that I want to have in my store. But again, you can create more than 9, whatever number you want. And again, if you want to create the same ones as mine, I'll put the link with the images in the description. Perfect. Now that we have created all of the products, let's go back into our code, and we want to actually connect our project with Stripe so that we can have access to those product informations. So in order to set up Stripe, we want to install Stripe into our project. So I'm going to open this up, and I want to run npm install Stripe. Then I want to come over here to our lib folder, and I want to create a new file which is going to hold our Stripe client. And inside of here, we just want to import Stripe from Stripe, and we want to export a new const called Stripe, which will instantiate a new instance of Stripe. Now, inside of here, we want to put the secret key for our Stripe account, but we don't want to just put directly here. We want to make a .env file that will allow us to put environment variables that we don't want to, or that we want to protect. So I'll put it in the .env file. Let's call it Stripe secret key. And we need to get it from our Stripe dashboard. Now in the Stripe dashboard over here, the key is directly, it's this one, it's not the publishable key. So you just go to the bottom one and you click on it, and you will copy to your clipboard, and you just come over here and you can just directly paste it. Now, if we go to our stripe.ts, you can just import it by saying process.env env.stripe secret key. Perfect. Now, since your environment variable might be empty and this might not exist, we want to enforce the type because this requires a string and we're using TypeScript. So I'll close this over here, and we want to go back to our main page. So the reason why I created all of those products is because on this home page over here, we need the product information so that we can show the product images. Now, how do I actually get the list of information related to the product? Well, to do that, we can very easily just fetch that information using the Stripe client that we just created. So I'm going to query the products by saying await Stripe, and we import the Stripe client that we just created. We say .products.list, and this list function will list all of your products. Now, we need to make this component be an async component in order to actually query it like this. And inside of here, we can actually put specifications of how we want to query the products. So the first thing I can do is I can pass an expand property, which basically is an option we're telling Stripe to expand a certain property for each of the products. So instead of just returning an ID reference for each specific product, we might want to get all of the information. So to do that, we have to pass a list here, and we can specify that we want the data for the default price. Then we can also limit the amount of products that are returned. So this is not the products page where we list all of the products. We just want like 3 to 4 products so that we can make the carousel and also make the home page with that product in the center. So I'm actually going to limit this query to only return back 5 products actually. Let's do it like this. So the carousel has 4 products instead of 3. Then inside of here, we now have access to that information. So let's just console log to see what we get back. Let's go back to our homepage, and if everything has correctly been set up, we should see the list of products. And we seem to have received it over here. And yeah, it's a data with 5 objects, and you can see that we did get we actually got 5 different products with a bunch of information about the product itself, like its price, and also the images of the product. If you were to actually go to the list where this image shows up, so the actual link for the image, you should see that it does show the actual image for it. I think it tried downloading it, so I might not actually display it. Yeah, it tries downloading it. So, but it means that we have the images set up. So let's display them in our component. So to make this home component, I want to have a div with a section inside of it. And the section will have another div inside of it with another div inside of it as well, just so we can make the structure of this page. Now this internal div over here is where we're going to put the title with the description of our website. So it's going to have a h2 tag, which will say welcome to my e-commerce, which is what I called this website. Then we're going to have a little paragraph tag right below it, right? And this paragraph tag will say discover the latest products at the best prices, or whatever a store would generically say. So below this, we want to put a button. Now, the buttons we're going to be using for this project are going to be shadcn buttons. So I want to use a button from the shadcn UI library. And the way I do this is I go to my terminal, then I run npx shadcn at latest add, and then I put the component that I want to install in my project. In this case is the button component. It's going to ask the same question it did before, and I will choose to use legacy peer dependencies. And as you can see, it created the button component for us. So that's what shadcn does. It creates specific components, UI components that they have, so that we can use it in our project. So I can just directly call that button component that they installed. You can see it will import from a UI folder instead of our components folder. And this button component is just like any other button, but it will have the specific styling created by shadcn. Now this button, we don't want to actually put much properties to it. I want to make it a child, and I want to set the variant to default. And then we also don't want to put an on click to it, because when you click on this button, we want to go to the products page, right? So the button is not appearing here right now. I'll just say browse all products, and you should see the button appearing somewhere. Now we don't want to put an on click to this button, because when we click on this button, we do want to go to the products page. However, the way to do this using an on click would be to use the router hook that Next.js provides to us. However, we can't use the router hook because this is a server component, because we made it async. So the kind of the hacky way to do it is I can make an a tag over here, so a link inside of this. So the hacky way of doing this is I can actually put a link inside of this, and this link will be the button. So I'll say browse all products, and I'll just link to, or pass an href to the products page. Now you should see that we have, obviously we don't have the styling yet, but we have this button, and when I click on it, it takes us to the products page. Great. Now let's go back over here and let's close this div. Now this is the first section of our homepage. The homepage will be divided in the middle. It's gonna have two things side by side. The first one is this section, and the second one is gonna be an image of a product. So to render an image, we wanna use the image tag from next image. So I'm gonna import this over here. I'm gonna say import image from next image, and oh, it was already imported at the top. Perfect. Now we want to put a couple properties here. First, we'll put an alt for accessibility image for accessibility purposes. I'm just gonna say banner image. Then we want to pass a width and a height. I'll make the width be 450, and I'll make the height be 450 as well. And then we want to actually put the source of the image. Now the source for this image will be one of the images that we got back from the products. You can choose which product you want to display in the homepage. I'm just gonna put the first. Actually, I'll put the first product that is returned. So let's just say products dot data, and then we'll get the first product from the data list, and then we'll access the images. And this is also an array because the product can have multiple images. So we'll just access the first one because I only put one image per product. And you should see that we should get an error. Now I'll explain to you guys why this is the error. I just forgot to set it up. When you actually use images from an API or a different service, you have to allow this API basically pass a list of like domains that are accepted to serve images in your website if you have a Next.js product. So since we're using images from Stripe, we have to allow list the Stripe domain in our next.config.ts. So over here, we need to pass an images property, and we pass a domain property, and we just pass a list of domains that are allowed to serve images. More specifically, we want to allow the files.stripe.com domain because this is the domain that actually is serving the images to us. Now that that's done, we can go back over here and refresh this, and you should see that it is serving the image for one of our products. It's the maple syrup product that we created, which apparently is the last one according to this. Now we're pretty much done with the first section of the homepage, because it will basically be a division between this and this side by side. And then below this, we'll have a different section which will render the carousel of images at the bottom. Now, we'll make the carousel component to display those images. It will be an independent component we create, which we'll call carousel. And inside of here, we'll just export const carousel. And we'll leave it as it is for now. So I'll just say a div over here, and we'll just import it inside of this. So carousel. Perfect. Now, what I want to do is I just want to put the styling for this page because this looks super ugly. So I'll cut to have the styling, and I'll be back in a second. Nice. So I just pasted here all of the Tailwind CSS code. And I also pasted in the globals.css file that I had for the project. This includes some colors and styling that I think I did throughout the way. So if you want to use the same, feel free to just copy and paste this as well. Now, if we go back here, you can see this is how it shows up in our homepage. We have here the title, like I said, with the description of the website and the browse all products button, and then the image showing up on the right, divided by the middle. Now below this is going to be the section for the carousel. Now for the carousel, we want to actually accept inside of this component some props because we need to have access to the product information that we got from here. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're just going to define a new interface called props. And the prop definition for this, we're going to pass in a products type, and the type for it is going to be Stripe. We'll import it from Stripe, and then we'll access the product type. So Stripe provides us a bunch of different types that we can directly use in our code, so that's pretty nice. Then inside of here, we'll just destructure that prop and pass the value of the props interface to specify what props this is accepting. Now in the carousel over here, the code is going to be a bit interesting because most of this carousel is going to be using the card component from ShadCN. So we need to come over here and we need to run the same component as we had before, but we'll add the card component. Now it's going to add it automatically for us. It is added to the same UI folder. And inside of here, there's a bunch of different components that are parts of what a card is that we need to actually use. So inside of here, let's just return a card from ShadCN. Now this card will contain inside of it the information for the product. Now the only information we want for the product inside of this carousel is the image as the background, but then in the middle, we might want to put the name of the product and the price. So I'm going to put first the image of the product as the background thing, the cover of this card. So I'm going to access the product information, but remember, this is a carousel, so the product information will be changing consistently. And it's a carousel that changes the image being displayed every few seconds. More specifically, I want to make it change every 3 seconds, so we need to write some code that is going to make that happen. So the first thing I want to do to make that happen is I want to keep track of what is the current product being displayed. So I'm going to create here a state called current and set current, and this will be a number, and it will reference the current index of the products array representing the current product in that array that is being displayed. Initially, it will just show the first product, so 0. Then inside of this, we want to actually run a use effect, and this use effect will run code every single time there's a change in the list of products, or in the list of products length, at least, because that's what I think would matter the most here. It is saying that there's no type of length. Oh yeah, this should be an array because it's a list of products, not just one product. And inside of this use effect, we want to run an interval. Now, an interval allows us to run some logic at a specific interval of time inside of our code. And to run them in your React component, you have to put them inside of our use effect. So I want to create here the interval, and I'll call it the set interval function. Now, the set interval function allows us again to pass the interval time over here in milliseconds. We want to run this carousel image cycle every 3 seconds. So I'll put 3000 milliseconds to represent 3 seconds. Now, every time this interval is called, we want to switch the images. We want to move forward in the carousel. So I'm going to say that I want to set current, access the previous value, and basically set the current value to be equal to prev plus 1. However, that causes an issue because if you think closely, we have 5 products in our list. When we get to the last product, it's going to get out of bounds. So the way we do this is I want to actually say prev plus 1, and then we use the modulus operator so that we can calculate the remainder of when the new index is divided by the total number of products. So I'll say products.length, and this will ensure that once the index reaches the end of the products array, it will wrap around back to 0, preventing us from going out of bound. Now, since we are creating an interval inside of a use effect, there's the chance that this component will unmount and the interval won't be closed. So we want to clear the interval when the component is unmounting to prevent memory leaks. So to do that, I'll return a function inside of this use effect that will clear the interval, and we'll pass the interval that we created inside of here. Perfect. Now we have this logic, and whatever current is the index of the products array that will represent the image that should be displaying, or the product information that should be displaying. So we can access the current product by basically just accessing products and passing current. Now I also want to specifically get the price. So I'll say price, and I want to specify that the price will be the current product dot default price, and I want to cast the stripe dot price type to it. Now you see why we're doing this when we use the price inside of our UI over here, but we'll start by actually trying to display the image. So to display the image, we want to check first to see if the product has an image, because not all products necessarily have to have images. Even though all the ones we created do have it, we have to assert that they are not nil. So we'll say current product.images if that's not nil, and current product.images 0, which is the first image in the product's images list, is not nil. Then we want to display this div that will contain an image inside of it. Now this image will import it from next image, and inside of here we're going to pass an alt. Now this alt will just be the current product.title, our name actually, and the source will be the current product.images and get the first image of the product. Now I also want to put a layout to this image, and I'll say fill, and I want to say object fit to be cover, so that we can have the kind of like the background image aspect or styling to this image. Now I don't think it will show it yet. It is saying you're importing a use effect. The thing is, yeah, this is by default a server component, and we're importing the use effect and the use state inside of here. So we need to define this as a client component. So I'll say use client at the top. Now also this is giving us some errors because remember we passed the new prop. So we have to pass here the products prop and pass the products list that we just fetched from Stripe. Now it's still giving us an error because we have to say .data, and it should be good to go. Now let's see. Yeah, it is swapping through the images every 3 seconds, but obviously the styling isn't done yet, and it's kind of insane because the images are huge. But let's just focus on building the carousel. Now below the images section, we want to actually put the content of this card, which will include the name of the product and the price. So we'll import the card content component that is created in the card UI component from ShadCN, and inside of here we'll pass a card title, which is another component, and in this card title we will pass the current product dot name. Then below this, I want to check to see if price is not nil. Remember we created the price variable, and if the price dot unit amount is not nil as well. Now the unit amount is a value that Stripe gives to us to represent the price of the product, but it doesn't give it to us like this, like $15.99. It gives it to us, I think it would be like 500, like 1,599, something like that. It gives us in a huge number, so we have to divide that value by 100 to actually display the correct information. So I want to check to see if it's not null, and then inside of here, I'm going to render a paragraph tag, and I'm going to put the price dot unit amount but divided by 100, and then I want to put in front of it a $sign, and you should see that if I go back over here, it's showing behind this, but you can see it has here the price of the product, right? It clearly shows it. Now we also want to fix that value, so I'm gonna wrap all of this around with a parentheses, and I want to fix it to only 2 decimal points, so I'll say 2. Perfect. Now this is pretty much done for this carousel. We just have to add the styling. So I'm going to cut to the styling being done. Perfect. As you can see, it wasn't a lot of styling, and it will all inside of the carousel.tsx file. So this is how it looks. If I go back over here, it's just all of the images with the price and the title in the center. And I mean, the color of the thing can change. Obviously the images, some images also have lower quality. You have to account for that as well. But it's a nice little carousel that switches images and products every 3 seconds. So we pretty much have our home page done. So now let's start working on our products page. So to do that, I want to come back over here and let's go to the products folder and then the page.tsx inside of it. Now, inside of here, we want to make this into a server component, which it is already by default, but we want to add it an async so that in the products page, we actually fetch the list of products. Now, this is exactly what we did with our homepage over here. So I want to copy the same code that we put there, but we want to insert it in the products page. And the difference is that we won't limit this. We want to fetch all the actual products that we have in our account. Now, the UI for this, we're going to basically have an h1 tag that will be a title saying something like all products. And then below this, I want to have a component which will display the list of products. Let's call it the product list. And this component will also take in the products as a prop, similar to what we did with the carousel. So we'll say products.data and pass that on. Now let's create that product list component inside of our components folder. We'll call it product list.tsx. And inside of here, we're going to export const product list. And we want to create an interface right above it. That will be the props interface. And then inside of here, the type will be products. And similar to what we did before, it will be stripe.product. We do have to import the stripe type. And we want to make this into a list of products. And we'll just cast that type over here and say props. Perfect. Now, inside of this component, we want to return a div. And inside of it, we want to put another div, which will contain an input where we will be able to type on to search for the products. So we'll have a product search input at the top, which you can type and it will filter out the product that you want. Now we'll make this input be of type text. We'll add a placeholder to it, which will say search products. And for now, we'll just keep it like that. Now below this div, we want to actually display the list of products by using an unordered list. Now we'll start by just displaying the products. We won't care about the input and the filtering. We'll deal with that later. So to do that, I want to loop through the products that we get from the props. So I'll say products.map, and for each item in the list, we'll grab the information and call it product. And then for each of them, we want to return a list item, which will contain the product card. We'll make a little card for each of the products. Now to do that, we want to create an actual component called product card. So product card.tsx. Now this component, I'm going to copy the product list component just so we save some time. And we'll just change the name from this from product list to product card. Now it will also take in prop, but the prop it will take in is just a single product and not a list. So we'll change this and we'll remove the list out of the type definitions. Now we'll also remove all of this logic here. And we'll call the product card inside of here, and we'll pass the product as the type. So product. Now we also want to get the key here, and we'll make the key be the key of the list item. Perfect. Now for the product card is where we want to put the UI for it. So let's think of what a product card is. It's going to be a little card where you can hover over it and you can click on it. And when you click on it, it will actually take you to the product page. Now, the product card in itself will display some information, mostly like the product description, the product name, the product price, and so on. Similar to what we did with the carousel. So to do this, the first thing I want to do is I want to wrap this whole thing up with a link. So that again, when you click on it, it will take you to the product page. Now we haven't made the product page yet, so I'll just make an href here and make it take you to the products/1. We haven't made how the product page will look like, so we'll just put a random link. Now inside of here, we want to actually call the card component from the shadcn card component from the UI folder. Then inside of this, we want to display the image. Now we want to do something very similar to what we did with the carousel. So I'm actually going to copy some of the logic from the carousel. We want to copy this logic over here, the images logic, and we'll paste it inside of the card. Now, obviously some of the information is different, like it isn't current products, so we switch to product. And also we have to import the image component. So we'll say import image from next image. Perfect. Now the styling, I know we grabbed the styling from that other page. If there's any changes, it will be automatically filled when I paste in the styling for this specific component. Now, below this, we want to add a card header. And the card header will have a card title, which is also pretty similar to what we did with the carousel. But we will display the product dot name. Then below this, we want to put the card content. Now, the card content might include the description or it might not. I personally don't want to put the description because I didn't fill in the description for all of the products. But if you did, you can put it over here. I just want to put the price of the product. Now to get the price, we'll do the same thing we did with the carousel. We're going to copy this line over here and we'll paste it over here. And we'll have to change this to product. Now the price it might be null, and we have to convert the price.unit amount, remember? And then inside of here, we're going to put a p tag. Actually, we can just copy that as well. Copy this whole thing over here and just paste it here. Perfect. Now, we should see that if I go to the products page, it seems to be giving us an error. And yeah, we didn't actually import the product list component in our products page component. So when I go back over here, you see this is how it looks like, obviously without any styling or anything done. So we are getting all of the products, we're getting the names. We are not getting the price though. So we should see what's up with that, but we are getting all of the products and it seems to be working. Now let's take a look at what happened with the price. So it seems like the price is being displayed. I just made it white because I copied from the carousel. Yeah, it should be displayed. Perfect. Now the last thing I want to do is I just want to add a button over here, which even though we are calling wherever you click in the product card, it will take you to the product page. We still want to put a button that will say view details so that we can at least have a visual feedback to the user so they know that they can just click on this. So we'll add this button, and right now it's white, but when we add the styling, it will be fixed. So let's do that. Let's add the styling for both the product list and for the product card. Perfect. As you can see, after the styling was added, this is how it looks. Each of the products have their own card, has a button with the price, and also I decided to add the descriptions. Now, the reason why I decided to add the description is because after adding the styling, which by the way, this is the styling. Now, the reason why I decided to add the description is because after adding the styling, which by the way, this is the styling over here, we just added styling to the product card, to the product list, and to the page.tsx. We also added some styling here because we need it for the title and for the overall div. But what I was going to say is that I was looking at the products and I remember I did add styling myself when I made the demo. So I went back to each of the products and I added like a generic description to them. So to display the description, it's what we were talking about. You go to the product card and you just access the description and display it in a paragraph tag. That's all that I did that was different from the last time you guys saw me. So this is pretty much the display of all of the products done in the products page. Now we want to be able to search through the products and filter through the list of products based on this search. Now to do this, it's a simple search filter. And if you are familiar with my videos, you know that this is the actual problem that I always like to ask in a React interview, because it shows your ability to work with states in React and how to actually manipulate the UI to display what you want. In this case, we want to manipulate the UI because we want to filter through a list and only display parts of the UI if some condition is met. Now, to do that, we have the list here in the products list component, right? And we want to keep track of what the user is typing on this search input. So I'll create a state called search term and create a function called set search term. And we'll set it equal to use state, and I'll make it a string and set an initial value to an empty string. Then I want to create a new version of this products list. It will be called the filtered products, and we'll set it equal to products.filter. And we'll filter through this list, and for each product in this list, we're going to check to see if a condition is met. So the first condition is just that the name of the product matches what we're typing in the search term. So to do that, I'm gonna get the term from the search term, but we don't want to just get the search term as it is being typed, because we want to match, for example, maple syrup the same way as if we wrote maple syrup. So we want to normalize the letters so that they're either capitalized or not capitalized. So when you make the comparison, it doesn't take that into account. So I'm actually going to make it everything lowercase. So I'll get the search term and normalize it to lowercase. Then I want to check to see if the name matches. So I'll say const name match, and we'll make this Boolean, and we'll just compare to see if the product dot name dot to lowercase, because we also have to lowercase the normalize the product name, and we'll see if it includes the term. So it just checks to see if the name of the product includes the term that we're trying to search. Now that's enough for a simple filtering system, but we want to make it a little bit more in depth. So we want to actually also check to see if what the user is typing matches a part of the product's description. So I'll copy this, and I'm going to make another one called description match. And description match will check instead for the product description, but also it will only check if the product description is equal to true. So I'll say product description, and if it's not equal to true, then it will just default to false. So I'll just come here and I'll say false. Perfect. Now, at the end of this, we'll have these two booleans: if the product matches through the name or if the product matches through the description. And we'll just return that this will be true if either the name match is true or the description match is true. So this is what the list will contain. It will only contain products that matches either one of the booleans. So instead of using the products list, we'll now use the filtered product list. And you see that what happens is, we're using a state now. So let's go back over here and let's make this into a client component. So use client, and we'll come back over here and we'll try searching for a product. I'll try searching for maple syrup, but also because we are using, this is a client component and we're using a state, we have to, and I forgot about this, we have to just set an on change to this input, grab the event, and just set the search term equal to the event.target.value, and also pass the value here equal to the search term. Perfect. Now let's go back over here and let's search for the maple syrup product. Yeah, it works. Now let's search for a smartwatch. Yeah, it works. Now let's try a description. So let me write hi, because hi appears on the high definition for the monitor and also for the gaming laptop. So if I write hi, we should see that, yeah, for this one as well, it shows all the products with the word hi in the description. Perfect. So this is working, and it's all great. Now it's time for us to build the individual product pages. So when I click on something like the maple syrup, I should go to a page where it shows the maple syrup photo together with some information about it, and also buttons that will allow us to add this product to our cart. Obviously, we don't have the cart created yet. However, this is going to be important for us to have first, so that when we create the cart, we already have the ability to add items to our cart. So to do this, you see that when I click on it right now, it takes us to products/1. Now, we want to make a route or like a component in our project that will represent a route that changes its information, its UI, based on whatever param we put after the product's URL. So basically, I want that param to be the ID of the product that we're trying to go into and see the page of. So to do that, I'll come over here to our link, which is where we actually define that when you click on that card, it will take you to products/1. And instead of redirecting you to products/1, we want to go to products/the product ID. So I'll say product.id, meaning that now if I were to come over here and I were to click on the maple syrup, it will take me to a URL that looks like this. It has the products path name, but also has the ID of the product that we're navigating to at the end. And we can use that for our leverage to actually fetch the information related to that product. So what we want to do is we want to come back over here, and in our products folder over here, we want to create another folder inside of it, which is going to be for the page with the param ID. So to do that, we have to define the name of the param, which we do by adding square brackets and passing the name of the variable, which is going to be ID or product ID, whatever you want to call it. So that means that this folder will have a page.tsx inside of it, and the component here will be represented by the /products/product ID. Now inside of here, we want to export default, and I'll make this an async function called product page. Now the product page will be very simple. We're just going to have a return here, and we're going to return a component we're going to create called product detail. Now, you might question, why aren't we putting the UI here directly in the product page? Because the product page is going to be a server component, because inside of it, we will want to fetch the data for the product and then pass that data into this UI component or this client component that is going to display that information. Now to fetch the data, all we have to do is we'll create a variable called product, and we'll set it equal to stripe, and then we'll import our instance and say stripe.products, and we'll say .retrieve. Now this retrieve function allows us to retrieve a specific product based on a condition. The condition is that the ID of the param, so param ID, obviously we don't have it yet, is equal to, and then we can put, oh, I don't know what happened here. I'll just write param ID again, and let's hope it stays. But it's equal to, and then we put a condition inside of here to specify what part of the product we want to compare it to. And the way we specify that we want to compare it to this product, or the ID of this product, is by specifying the default price. Now, to get this param ID over here, we have to access the param from the page's URL. And we can easily get this from Next.js routing by accessing it through the props. Now the props, we still have to define the type. We'll just define it as having a field called params, and that field will have another object with a field called ID, which is a string. Now this gives us access to the params.id that we get from the URL. Now with this, we can pass this product as a prop to this product detail component that we haven't created yet. And this is pretty much all that this component will do. Now we also have to await this call. I forgot about it. That's why we made this async. And let's create the product detail component. So we'll say product detail.tsx, and we'll export const product detail. We'll make it into just a normal component. We'll return some UI. Then we'll have to make the interface for the props. So we'll say interface props. It's a product, and the product will have of type stripe dot product. Now it's not an array, it's just a single product, and we'll destructure it from the props. Perfect. Now, we'll immediately destructure here some information from this product that we might want to use. So mainly the information we want is the price, right? Which is something that we've been doing multiple times in this product already. Actually, I'll just copy from here as well. So I'll just paste this here, and then we'll need information about the cart. Now we, again, don't have the cart yet, so we'll leave that for later. So let's start building the UI for this then. I'm gonna put a div over here, and this will encompass the whole component. Then inside of it, I'll immediately want to write that logic for displaying the image of the product. We've done this multiple times, so again, I'll just copy and paste this over here. Now we have to change the name to be, well, actually we have to import image from next image. So import image from next image, and I think the rest should be okay. Now, right after showing the image, I actually want to have another div that will show the title of the product. So I'm going to put an h1 tag over here, and I'm going to say product.name. Then inside of here, I want to add the product description. So I want to check for the description, product.description. If it is true, so if it's not nil, then I want to display a p tag with the product.description. Then below this, we want to add another p tag. Now this one is going to be for price, and we've done price multiple times as well. So I'll just copy the logic for the price. It's basically this over here, and we'll actually just replace this. Perfect. Now we want to write the logic for the cart buttons. So if we go over here now and I click on any of these, we should see, oh, it says product detail not defined. So the thing is, we haven't imported this component from here. But if I go here, you should see that it shows the image of the product that we specifically went to the page of. So if I went to this one, we should see this product. I actually use the pages with the best image qualities because it just looks better. But yeah, so this is the product, as you can see, and we're seeing the image, the title, the description, and the price. Now I want to add a button somewhere here that will be a plus and a minus button. Those two, when called, will actually show will allow you to add and subtract an item from the cart. But we should also display the information of how many of these items are already in our cart. So to do this, it will be a little bit weird because we don't have the cart functionality yet, but we'll just build the UI for it. So I'll put a div here, and I'll add a button from ShadCN as well. And this button will have a plus. Or actually, since it's the first one, it will have a minus. So I'm going to give a variant to it, and I want to make the variant of it to be outline. And I think that should be enough. Then I'll copy this, and I'm going to add another button, which will be the plus button. But in between it, we want to add a span, which will contain the quantity, which will start at 0. We don't have the value yet, but we'll keep it like this. Now, if we go over here, we should see this is the UI that we want, right? A button for a plus and for a minus. Now, let's add the CSS for this page, and then we can start building the logic for the cart functionality. Perfect. As you can see, I added all of the styling, and this is how it should look like. Now, obviously, it isn't working yet. So let's think about this. How do we want to implement this cart functionality? Well, to make a cart system work in our project, we want to have some sort of state that we're keeping track of, which is going to be an object with our products and how much of each of the products we currently have in our cart. Now, to keep that logic and distributed throughout multiple components, we probably want to use some state management. Now, we could use the context API to do this, which is a built-in solution for React. However, I don't like the context API that much because of all of its setbacks. Things ranging from needing to create your own provider for it, or being really weird to define types, and also the fact that if a part of the state of the context changes its value, it causes a re-render of all of the components that consume it. Things like that are very big drawbacks to using the context API every single time. And I personally like using Zustand as a state management solution. So that's what we're using in this project. Now to use Zustand, I just have to install Zustand over here. So I'm going to say npm install Zustand, and Zustand is pretty simple to understand. I have a full video explaining everything related to the library, but the idea is that we want to create a folder in our project called store, and inside of it we're going to put a file called cart store, and a store is just going to be an instance of a group of states that we're trying to manage together, and this is the group for the cart functionality in our project. Now in this cart store file over here, let's start by defining some TypeScript types. So we'll define an interface called cart item, and this interface is going to define what is an item in the cart. Well, an item in the cart has an ID, which is going to be a string. It has a name, which is going to be a string. It has a price, which is going to be a string as well. And actually the price will be a number, what am I talking about? And it's going to have an image URL, which is going to be either a string or null, because we don't know if not all products need to have an image. And it's going to have a quantity. So if you look at this, you know, there's 3 pieces of information which are related to the product in itself. And the last one is something extra that is going to help us keep track of how much of the product we currently already have on the cart. Now, we also want to create an interface called the cart store. And this is going to define how our Zustand store is going to look like. So what do we want in this Zustand store? What are the things that we want to distribute and manage as part of our state? So we first want to know what are the items in our carts. So like what is a list of items, right? Or a list of cart items. So we're going to have an items array, which is going to be a cart item array. Then we're also going to have a function which is going to add items. So we'll have an add item function inside of this store, which we can define the type to return void, but it will take in an item, a cart item more specifically, and it's going to add that item to the list. Now we're going to have other types as well, but I just wanted to make those 2 first because I think adding them first will help you understand how we are creating our store. So we'll add the other ones later, but we now have enough information to create our cart store. So I'm going to create here and export a constant called useCartStore. And in Zustand, when you create a store for your project, it is in the format of a hook. It exports a hook so that you can then consume in any component you want. You don't have to pass providers, just call the hook and it will give you the information you want to access. Now, to use it, we have to use the create function from Zustand. So I'm going to import here the create function from Zustand, and we're going to define that this cart store is going to have a type of cart store. Now, one thing that we want as well is we want to persist the data for the cart even when you refresh the page or leave the website, right? So if someone added this designer backpack to their cart, we don't want to simply remove it from their cart when they leave the website or when they refresh the page. Because first of all, that's not good for conversions because they will have to add it again. And that's an extra step you're making the client or the users do. But also because like they should just keep track of it, right? So we want to keep track of the data in a persistent way, even when the user refreshes the page. And there's multiple ways of doing this, right? But the main ones are through the different storage capabilities that your browser has. More specifically, the local storage. Now, if you want to keep track of your Zustand state in the local storage, you can use this really cool function called the persist function from Zustand/middleware. And all you have to do to actually make Zustand like keep your states in the local storage is basically just passing this persist function over here and wrapping it around your Zustand store. Now, when we call this persist function over here, we can pass inside of it a callback function that will return an object. And in this object, we will define the format of our cart store. Now inside of it, we have access to this function called set, and it will allow us to be able to manipulate the state. Now, remember, a cart start looks like this. It has items and it has an add item function. So let's first define what an items is. Well, items will start as an initial value having an empty array. Then add item will be a function that will take in an item, right? Because that's how we defined it over here. Now, how does this add item function works? Well, the first thing we have to do is actually use this set function over here that basically tells Zustand that we want to manipulate a part of our cart store. More specifically, this items state over here. So I'm actually going to remove this and I'm just going to call the set function over here, and it will give us access to the current state. Now inside of this, we want to first use that state to check if the item we're trying to add already exists in that state. Now, what does that mean? Well, if we're trying to add a new item to this cart item list, which is a list of items, right? We want to check if this new item we're trying to add is already there, because if so, then all we have to do is just increase the quantity number on that cart item. But if not, we just want to add that cart item as an extra element in this cart item array. So we need to keep track of the existing. We'll say existing is equal to state.items to access the list of cart items. And then we'll use the find function to see if the item is there. So I'll just make an equation here by saying if the item.id is equal to the item.id, meaning the item that we're trying to add, then it found a match, and this existing boolean here will be equal to true. So if that's true, so if existing is equal to true, then we want to return from here the state of our state to basically be just that we changed the items value to be the same array as it was before, but then the item that we just found, right, the item with the same ID, will now have a different quantity. Now, the way you write that logic is you'll loop through the items array by using a map, and you'll map through all of those items, find the item with the ID equal to the item.id, so the item we found over here. And if that's the case, then we return basically the same item, but the quantity of that item will have changed to be equal to the current quantity plus the item.quantity. Now, trust me, I understand this is all might seem a bit confusing, but don't worry, I'll give a full explanation of it when we're finished writing. And if this is not true, then we'll just return I. So this is the first condition. Now, the second condition is if the item doesn't exist in the items array. And if that's the case, then we want to return an object with the items basically being a list with the current state of the items, so with the current value of the list, plus we'll add the new item at the end. Perfect. Now, the reason why this is still giving us it's like red squiggly lines is because we do have to actually come over here and add a value to this, because remember, this is basically telling Zustand that whatever the state of this exists inside of here, we want to keep it in the local storage. So we need to have some sort of name to that local storage variable. So we'll give a name to it, and I'm going to call it cart. Perfect. Now let's go over this logic again, because I know it might sound a bit confusing. Basically, with Zustand, we have access to this state variable, which is the state that we have in this store, right? So it's items. It's what we're keeping track of, and we have a bunch of functions that can manipulate that state. Now, inside of this set function over here, we get access to the state, and we can manipulate it. Now, the way you manipulated it is basically you return a new value to that state, right? An object with that state and its new value. Now, what we want to do here when we're adding an item is we're first checking to see if that item that we're adding, which by the way, it's going to be of this format over here. It might be a quantity of 10, of 5, it might be whatever you want, right? And we check to see if it exists. And if it does, then all we want to do to the current state, so to the current list of items, is we want to loop through it, get the item that we're trying to add that already exists there, and change its quantity to be a combination of the two quantities. If not, keep it the same. But if the item doesn't exist in the current item state, then add it to the list. I hope that makes sense, but if it doesn't, please leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to help you in the comments. Now, if I want to use this functionality, right, we have the items list and we can add a new item. I can actually use it now. I could come to the product details component over here, and if I want to access that hook or that store, I can just use the use cart store hook, and it will give us back both the items list and the add item function. Now this is helpful because, for example, in this page over here, if I want to display the information of whether or not how much of this product we have in our cart, we want to first know if this item, the current cart item, exists in the list. So we could make here a variable called cart item and set it equal to items.find, and we'll loop through this list, get each of the items, check to see if the ID matches. So item.id is equal to product.id, right? To see if the item matches this product. And if it does, then this will be true. If it doesn't, it won't. And this means that we can actually get the quantity of how much of this item we have in our cart. Because if cart item is equal to true, then the quantity will just be whatever is the quantity in that cart item. But if it's not, then it's 0 because that item is not in the cart yet. And we can set this now to, instead of being just like a default value, it's the quantity, which obviously will still be 0. Oh, I just see we have to actually, we have to turn this into a client component. So use client. And then we go back here. So it's 0. But obviously that doesn't mean anything because we haven't actually added the ability to increase this value. So let's do that. This add item over here, if it is working, it should add an item, or it should increment this quantity to 1 if we click this button. So let's write that logic. I'm going to pass an onClick over here. And this onClick is basically going to have to call, actually I'm going to put over here, call on add item. And we're going to have to create that function over here, const on add item. And inside of here, we're going to have to call the add item function, and we'll pass the ID of this product to be equal to product ID, right? Because we have to pass a cart item inside of here. Then the name of this product will be product.name. The price will just be the price. The image URL will basically be we'll check to see if the product.images exist. If it doesn't, then we'll just default to null. But if it does, then we're going to say product.images and get the first element. And then finally, the last one is quantity. And we're going to just set it equal to 1 by default because we're adding the item for the first time. Now, this is giving us an error because it is, okay, I'll just say that this will be equal to price as a number. And that should work, or it doesn't. Oh yeah, I have to say actually dot unit amount as number. Perfect. Now, let's test to see if this works. If I click on this, it increases to 1. Perfect. Now, if I click on this, it increases to 2, to 3, to 4. However, I don't want to, and it keeps track of it as well. Because remember, we use the persist function. So Zustand should have created, a cart local storage item with the entirety of our state. Perfect. This is great. Now, let's go back over here. And this is how we're going to use the cart store to actually manipulate the cart. Now, we want to add other functions to this as well. More specifically, we want to be able to remove an item and we want to be able to clear the cart. So I'm going to add those two functions to the cart store interface. So the first one is remove item, and it doesn't require a cart item. It just requires an ID, which will be a string. And the clear cart actually doesn't require any argument. It just clears the cart. Now, this is now all giving us errors because we need to add those two elements here. So we'll add first the remove item. So we'll say remove item, and we'll have to make a function here for this. So remove item requires an ID, and it calls the set function, which will give us access to the state. And then we'll write the function inside of this. But we also need to have the clear cart function. Now this clear cart function also calls the set function, but this one is actually going to be even easier. I'll do this one first. All the clear cart does is it just returns an object with the items equal to an empty array, right? You're clearing your cart. Now that's basically it. We don't even need to have access to the state. Now on this one, the remove item, it's also pretty simple. All we want to do is we just want to filter through the list of items and basically map the quantity to be a lower value. And if the quantity ends up going below 0, then we completely remove the item from the list. So to do that, we're going to have to return over here the items array. And we'll just say that the items array is going to be equal to the state, the items, which is the current array. And we'll map through it. Now, when we map through it, we can get each item, or actually, I won't call this. Actually, we can call it item. And then we'll just check to see if the item.id is equal to the ID of the item we're trying to remove. Because if it is, then we'll just keep the item as it is, but we'll decrease the quantity. So I'll say quantity and say minus is equal to item.quantity minus 1. So we're just decreasing it by 1. And if it's not the item we're trying to remove, then we'll obviously just keep it the same by returning item. Now, this allows us to actually just decrease the quantity. However, after we map all those values, we also want to filter out the ones that now have a negative quantity, because now they are irrelevant. They shouldn't even be, or not even negative. The ones that have 0 quantity, they shouldn't be in the cart at all. So we'll loop through the items again. And if the item.quantity is not greater than 0, then remove it. So this is the logic for the remove item. And we have access to it over here as well now. So we'll grab that function, remove item. And inside of here, we'll actually just call it directly when we click the negative button. So we'll put an onClick over here. We don't even have to make another function. And I'm just going to call the remove item. And I'll just pass the product.id. Let's test to see if this works. So our item has 11, but if I click here, it goes to 10, to 9, to 8. Let's try going to 0 to see what happens. And yeah, it doesn't break anymore. Now, you might have noticed that this issue appeared over here. And I've dealt with this issue multiple times in the past. Basically, when we passed the value for the product directly here, the JSON, Next.js doesn't like that. It actually prefers that we pass the plain product first. So we'll actually parse the JSON and stringify the JSON inside of here. So we'll say stringify the JSON product and then parse it, because then Next.js won't have an issue with it and it will know what this object actually looks like, and that error will go away. Perfect. Now we have this cart functionality working, and also you can have multiple items in the cart as well. I can come here and add this, and you'll see that if I go back to was it the maple syrup? No, it was the bag. It still exists in here. Now that we have all of that, all we want to do is add the checkout section and allow the user to actually check out. So to add the checkout section, I actually want to go back to our Navbar, which is something we haven't touched in a while. So the Navbar over here, this requires some changes. First of all, we're not showing this is not responsive because it doesn't have the logic for the mobile version of the app. So we definitely have want to do this in order for people to use the website in mobile, but also it doesn't have the shopping cart icon, right? That little shopping cart at the top with the cart count. So the amount of items in your cart. So we definitely want to do that. I'll leave the mobile as last, just so we can focus on the cart stuff right now, since it's what we're already doing. but I'll leave that for later. So we'll start here with the cart stuff. We'll make a link because when we click on the little shopping cart icon, we want to go to the checkout page. So we'll put here the href and we'll put the checkout page. And inside of here, we actually want to use an icon that I really like from a library. So I want to install an icon library. This icon library is going to be the hero icons. So we'll install a hero icon / React. And to use the shopping cart icon, I literally just import here the shopping cart icon. And I can just import it, and I can just come over here and I'll say import from @hero icon / React, and then we'll specify /24 /outline. Now I'll import 3 different icons from this library that we're going to be using in this component. The first one is going to be the shopping cart icon, the one we're using right now. But we'll also want the bars 3 icon, which is going to be for the hamburger menu for mobile, and also the X mark icon. Now, we want to show this icon at all times. However, we want to show the count of the cart, so like the amount of items in the cart, only when something has been added to the cart. So we want to create this variable somewhere around here, which is going to be called cart count. And it will keep track of the total items in the cart that has been added, plus the quantity of them. So the way we do this is, first of all, we need to have access to our cart items. So I'm going to say const and set it equal to use cart store. And we'll destructure the items from it. Then to actually get this information, there's a handy way to do it, which is we use the reduce function. And the reduce function will allow us to loop through first the actual and the item. And I'll say ac plus item.quantity, so we can get the quantity of the item. And we'll put 0 over here. Now this should give us back the actual cart count, because the reduce function will iterate over every element in the items array. And the accumulator over here will hold the total running number that we're trying to keep track of, which is the total number of items in the cart. It starts as 0, so accumulator will always start as 0 when we create this. But at every item that we go through in the cart, we just add the quantity. So like if we have 2 items, each of them has 6 versions of them in the cart, we now have a cart count of 12, right? So with the cart count, what we can do is we can come down here and we can check, okay, if cart count is greater than 0, then we want to display that cart count using a pen. Now with this pen, we'll just display the cart count, but we'll have to add some styling to make it look like a little bubble on top of the actual cart. Now we then want to add a menu that will open our Navbar whenever, we have to just use the use client over here as well. So we want to create some sort of functionality that whenever you go to your Navbar and you pull this smaller and smaller, you see that our Navbar links disappear. And when that happens, we want to show a little button over here, which is going to open up the mobile version of this Navbar menu. So to do that, we have to add some functionality to know if we want to open the mobile menu or not. So the way I like doing this is I like using the use effect and the mobile open state. So I'm going to create here a state called mobile open and set mobile open. And we'll set this equal to a use state that will be a Boolean and will start as false. Then I want to create a use effect here. Now this use effect, it is going to get the size or the width of our window, and also make sure you put the empty dependency array here, but it's going to grab the size of the window through a function called handle resize. And when the window resizes, we're going to check to see if the window dot inner width is greater than or equal to 768, which is what I think is a good position for us to set the mobile open to be equal to false. Then at the bottom here, we want to add an event listener. So we'll say .add event listener, and we'll call the resize event listener, and we'll call the handle resize function. Now I actually have to put this outside of here, sorry, because obviously we don't want to call it inside of there. And when that happens, we want to return the window.remove event listener so that we don't have any issues with memory leaks, because we are obviously adding an event listener and will be running forever if we don't do this. So I'm going to say handle resize here as well. Now with this functionality, we can come down here and we can add a button below this link, and this button will contain will ask, okay, if the mobile version is open, then we want to show the X mark icon, which is going to be that icon with just an X. It's like for you to close the menu. But if it's not open, then we want to show the bars 3 icon, which is those 3 lines that look like a hamburger menu. I don't think we have the styling yet for this, and it was still given as an error here because we actually want to put a variant over here. Actually, we need to import this button as well. But I want to add a variant here, and I want to make the variant of this be ghost. And what I want to do is I want to be able to click on this mobile, on this button, and when I click on it, I want it to actually change to the X and open the menu. So to do that, we're going to say on click, and we're going to set the mobile open equal to the opposite of what it currently is. So if it's true, it will become false, and if it's false, it will become true. So you'll see that we can now switch between the 2 options. Now I'll go back over here, and obviously, yeah, clicking on that button changes the icons, but it doesn't really open the menu, and it doesn't actually show the mobile menu being open. So how do we do that? Well, to do that, I'm actually going to come down here, and I'm going to check, okay, if the mobile menu is open, then let's display the actual menu. Now the menu is going to look very similar to what we've done over here. We're going to actually put a nav over here, and this nav will just contain the whole menu. And then I'm going to put an unordered list, and I'll make each of the links be a list item. So the first list item is going to be a link that will take us to the home page. Now we're going to pass an href here, and we'll say that it takes us to the empty slash. Now I'm going to copy this list item, and I'm going to put 3 more times because there's 3 links that we want to use. The second one is to the products page. So we'll say products. And the third one is to the checkout page. So I'm going to say checkout. Now this should work. You can see that this now opens that up, but obviously it's not fully functional yet because it shouldn't even be showing up when the page is huge. It should only show up when we actually shrink down the size of the screen. So let's go back here. Now, whether or not this button actually shows up will be done with the styling. We'll probably have a class name here that will say something like MD is hidden. So I'm actually going to copy the final styling for this component, and I'll be back in a second. Perfect. So this is the rest of the styling, just some classes to make the button actually disappear and show the shopping cart, right? So the only time where the shopping cart doesn't show up is if we crawl this to below a certain width, and you'll see that it shows up the hamburger menu. So we can click on it, and it should expand the new mobile menu with the links over here. We can navigate through them, and it works perfectly. So now that we got that out of the way, let's add the little bubble over here that will show the cart count. Now, the way we test to see the cart count item is we have to add some stuff to cart. So I'm going to come to any of these over here. I'll click on this one, and let's add this item to cart. And you can see that it pops up over there. Let me add more stuff. And now let's go back over here. Let's add some maple syrup. Yeah, nice. It works. So we can also remove this, and add it back again. So now we are keeping track of the cart count and showing it up on our Navbar. Now we're almost done. We just have to make the checkout page, right? And in this checkout page, we want to show just the items being displayed in the screen, allow the user to click and add and remove items as well, and also allow them to click a button to check out their entire cart. So to do that, let's go back over here and navigate towards the checkout page, which we created right at the start of the video. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get the information about the cart. So I'm going to, again, call the use cart store component or hook, and we're going to get back here the items. Now with the items, I want to calculate the total for this cart, right? So the total price of how much you're paying. Now to do that, we're going to be using the reduce function again, because it helps us loop through an array and calculate some sort of total sum of some sort of amount. So we're going to create a total. We're going to say items.reduce. And similar to what we did before, we're going to have an accumulator and an item. Now with this accumulator, we want to add it to a calculation of how much each item in the cart will cost you. Now, if you think about it, a cart item includes not only the item itself, but also the quantity of how much of that item you added to the cart. So the total for that specific item will be the price of the product times the amount that you have added to the cart. So we're going to accumulate by basically adding the item.price times the item.quantity. So with this, we obviously have to set up an initial value, which will be 0. With this, we should get the total amount in the end. Now, if the total is 0, so if the total or if the items.length is equal to 0, so let's say if the total equal to 0, or the items.length is equal to 0. I mean, both scenarios should be at the same situation. We want to return a base case, which will basically say h1, your cart is empty, or something like this. And we should see that, again, we have to actually use client here. I'm sorry, I always forget it, even when I'm not recording. We can go back here, and we actually have items in our cart, so we won't see that. But if I were to remove the items that I added, which I believe were just this and this over here, we should now see that it says your cart is empty. Great. Now let's add the products again, at least add 2 of them. I'm going to add this coffee maker as well. Perfect. Now we want to display those items. So to do that, let's make the skeleton of the UI. I'm going to come down here, and we already have a div. Great. Let's add a h1 tag that will say checkout, right? To say that this is the checkout page. Then we want to add a card, similar to what we did with the other cards that we used here in the carousel and on the products page. We want to set a card header, and this header will basically put a title, so a card title, that will describe the order summary. Perfect. Now below this, we want to put a card content, and this card content will include an unordered list. Now this unordered list will be the list that of the items we have in our cart. So I want to loop through the list by saying items.map and grabbing each item and a key. Now for each item, we want to show a list item. Now in this list item, I'm going to put the key directly here. And inside of this, we want to put a div, which will contain the name of the item and the price of this item and the times the quantity of how much you added. So like the total price you're paying for each item, no matter which quantity you ordered. So for this, we're going to have to put 2 spans. So the first one is for the item.name, and the second one is going to be for the price. Now the way we're calculating the price is I want to say item.price times the item.quantity. Now, if you remember, the price we're getting here is not just a normal number. It is, again, a unit provided by Stripe. So we have to, and it's multiplied times 100. So to get a price that makes sense for the human eye, we want to divide this amount by 100. Now we also want to fix by 2 decimal places. So I'm actually going to wrap all of this around and say 2 fixed 2. Great. We should see now the price. I also want to put a money sign over here. So I'm going to just put it directly here. And yeah, now it looks better. Now we'll come below this div over here, but still above the list item, and we'll add another div. Now on this one, it's the part where you want to allow to show the amount of this item in the cart, plus have the buttons to increment and decrement the count. So I'm going to put over here a button, which will be a negative button. Then I'm going to also have to import this. Actually, we do have this functionality in the products page, right? In the product detail, we have this exact thing. So I'm actually just going to copy this and I'm going to paste it over here. Now we have some functions that we don't have here. So I'm going to say item.quantity here. Now we do have actually this remove and on add item functions. We just have to get them from the remove item and add item. And then we need to change this to item.id. And we'll actually, we won't call another function. We'll just call the add item directly here. So add item, and I'm just going to send the whole item. Perfect. It's probably we just need to remove that. And now we should be good to go. Now we should see that if we come over here, we have those two, and also they work perfectly. If I click here, we should see that this number decreased and also the number here decreased. If I click this, it works. Now it seems to be multiplying. Seems to be adding the whole thing. Let me see why. Oh, I guess it's because to actually add this item, I want to specify the quantity. So I want to say add item, pass an object, which is going to be an item destructured, but the quantity I want to specify to be 1, right? So let me refresh this. Yeah, now it should actually increase everything. Now, this is a good time to also at the end add the clear cart button so that we can actually reset the state for this website. So let's go back over here. And what we want to do is now below the unordered list, we want to add the text showing the total amount of your cart. Now, the total amount is going to be basically just this price plus this price. So we will come over here, we'll add a div, and we'll just say total, and the total will be equal to the total variable that we created over here. We don't have to add those, we already have that variable. So we're gonna say total divided by 100, and I need to wrap this around so this is actual JavaScript, and then I'll say 2 fixed, and I'll fix it to 2 decimal places. So 2 fixed and 2. Perfect. I also want to put a dollar sign over here, or a money sign over here, and I think we should be good to go. Now, if we go over here, we should see the total being displayed. Now, I do want to put the CSS, but I want to add it. I want to actually finish this component first. We just have one more thing to do, which is add the proceed to payment button. Obviously, right now it won't work, but we'll just add this button so that the entire UI is displayed for us. So below the card, we'll come over here and we'll add a form. Now, the reason why we're adding a form is because we want to submit some information to Stripe with regards to our cart items. So to do that, we'll have a form with an action that is called when you click on the button. So we'll add the button over here, and the button will just say proceed to payment. And we'll add a variant over here, and we'll make the variant be default. Now, actually, this should be a string, not a variable, and yeah. Now let's add the CSS to make this look a lot better, and I'll be back in a second. Perfect. So I just added here all of the styling. You can take a look if you want to, but this is how it should look. Now we could also add a clear cart button if you want it right here at the bottom, like something like this, and say clear cart. Now this button, we can just make it on click. Now this is like, you don't have to do this. I didn't have this in the demo, but I'll just add this for testing specifically. We want to call the clear cart function that we created, and we can just call clear cart. And yeah, because right now we have a lot of of items. If I click clear cart, then it clears everything and I can restart just adding items. Perfect. Now let me just add a couple just so we can test. Let me just add the Canada one, right? And let's come back over here and I'll remove that button because it does look ugly, but it's not part of the project. It's just for testing. Now let's add the functionality to actually proceed to checkout. How do we make this allow a user to click on this button and pay for those products using Stripe? Now to do this, we want to actually pass in an action to this. Now an action is going to allow us to call this function and pass the form data inside of here to a server function that we'll then use to make the connection to Stripe. So I'm going to create here actually a separate file. Let's call it checkout action. Make it a TypeScript file, and we'll actually create here the export const checkout action, and we'll make it async. Then we'll just this function will take in a form data, which will have a type of form data, and it will return a promise that will be void. Perfect. Actually, I have to, this comes beforehand. We just assign like this. Perfect. Now let's import this function over here and let's just pass the checkout action. Now, what I want with this checkout action is I want to have access to the items in our cart inside of here so that we can then send this to Stripe. Now, to have access to that, I need to pass the items through the form data, right? And the form data automatically goes into this function because we passed it into the action of the form. Now, to actually send the items, right? The items in this array over here are the items in the cart to this form action. I want to do something a little bit hacky. I want to add an input over here that is completely hidden. So I'll say type hidden, and I'll say name. It's going to be items, but the value of it is going to be a stringified version of the items object. So I'm going to say, or the items array. So I'm just going to say JSON.stringify items, and when I pass this as a value and this input is hidden, basically this input will contain the items cart as its value the whole way. So when we access the form data over here, we'll have access to that items. So let's do that. Let's retrieve the items JSON, and we'll set it equal to form data.get, and we'll get items, and we'll specify that this will be a string so that we know what the type is. And then I want to say const items, and I want to parse that actual string. So I'm going to say JSON dot parse, and I want to parse the items JSON. Then I want to actually map this cart item structure that we have over here, right? This is the structure of what a cart item is. But the thing is, we want to turn it into an object that looks like an actual, the actual product object from Stripe. So the way we do this is we restructure this through a map function. We'll call this the line items, which just represents a version of the cart items array, but with each of the actual items looking like the JSON that Stripe requires us to have when we send this information to them. So I'm going to say items.map, and I'm going to map through each of the items. I believe this will assign the type to a cart item. I think that will allow us to. And then inside of here, we're going to return actually an object. So I'm going to wrap this around with parentheses, and the object will have a price data. Now, the price data in a Stripe product includes the currency, which in our case is CAD. It also includes the product data. Now, the product data that we need to pass is just the name of the product. That's all that they need. So I'm going to say item.name. Now, the other thing that obviously they need to know, that Stripe needs to know about the product we're trying to add, is the price. Now, price, as you have seen multiple times here, is represented by something called unit amount, right? So we have to pass a unit amount property over here. So unit amount, and we'll set it equal to item.price. Now the last thing we need to pass through this cart is the quantity of this product that we're trying to check out. So to do that, I'm going to say quantity is equal to item.quantity. And now we have the items array, which is our cart items, in a format that we can send to Stripe, and it will recognize what we're trying to purchase. Now, with this in mind, we can actually now finally create a checkout session in Stripe. So I'm going to create a variable here called session. We'll set it equal to await Stripe, which we need to again import from our lib, stripe.checkout.sessions, and I want to create one. Now to create one, we need to pass in a couple things. The first one is, what is the payment method, or the types of payment methods that we accept. Now I'm just going to put card. I'm just going to put one, which is going to be card. But you can accept Karma, you can accept Cash App, you can accept Venmo, I think, or any other type as well. Now below this, I want to put the line items. So the line items is the actual products, so Stripe knows what we're trying to check out. Now we need to pass a mode, which is going to be, the mode is going to be payment. And finally, we need to pass two things, which is the success URL and the cancel URL. So when you are connected to Stripe, you're going to be in their domain. So they need to know where to redirect to your page if there's success in the payment and if there's a cancellation in the payment. So I want to pass here the success URL, and I want to make it into our public base URL. And this is going to change if we're in development or we are in production. So I want to create here a variable in our .env, which is going to be called the next public base URL. And right now that value is http://localhost 3000 because it's our localhost URL. So we'll use that over here by basically setting this equal to the process.env.next public base URL, and we'll put a success route to it. Then we'll add the cancel one, and it's going to be pretty much the same. So we'll say cancel URL, and we'll set it, if it gets canceled, then we just get back to the checkout page. Now, the thing is, when you successfully made this, you can make a thank you page, you can make whatever. We don't have a success route, so I could create one, but I would rather just return to the home page so that we can buy more products. Now, if you want to make a success page, you can make a route for that, and it will redirect you to that page. Now, after this, when this is done, it doesn't matter because we are going to redirect the session.url, and we're going to pass, and we're going to strongly define the type of this. Now it's going to ask us to import the redirect. We don't want to import from this. We want to import from next/navigation. So make sure you're using the right one. So next navigation. Did I write this wrong? Navigation. Perfect. Now, let's test to see how this works. It says neither API key or authenticator were provider. Oh, we got an error. Let me see what it is. I'll debug this and I'll be back in a second. Oh, so the issue is just that we have to declare use server over here. And this should be good to go again because it was trying to access a server environment variable, right? Which is the Stripe instance, right? This Stripe instance over here, and it can't access this if it's not in a server component. So that's why we had to actually make sure that this is a server that is using server at the top. Perfect. Now let's test to see what happens. So the total here is $1,091. Let's click proceed to payment. When I click on this, we should be brought to the test mode of the checkout page for our Stripe account. You can see it actually got all of the correct items, and it also got the correct quantity for each of them. Now, all we have to do is just put our information over here and make the payment. Now, if you want to test to see if what would happen if you actually pay for it, then you just have to put a random email here. I'll say random email at gmail.com. Then you can put your card information. Now, obviously, don't put your real card information, but even though it's in test mode, I would recommend you just using one of the different test cards that Stripe has. Now, the way you access their test cards is you go to this website over here, and down here they have a bunch of different test cards that you can use. So you can test paying with Amex, with MasterCard, and Visa. What I usually do is I usually use this Visa one. So you can come over here, paste that. Then the month and the year you need to put is just any month or year that is later than what the current date is. So I'm going to put, I don't know, March 28th, like March 2028. Then put whatever for this and put whatever for this as well. Then choose a country that doesn't require you to put a postal code. So I'll choose Cape Verde, and then I'll click pay. Now, if this is successful, we should be brought back to the home page. Yeah. Or to the success page that you created. Perfect. Now the thing is, when we get brought back to the home page, we should be able to automatically clear our cart. So how do you do that? Well, to do that, it would be good to have a success page, because in that case, if you have a success page, you can call the clear cart function that we created in our hook. And you can also show, like I said, show like a thank you for purchasing, whatever. So I want to do that. I want to come over here just for those who decided they want to have a success page. I'm going to add a new page to here. We're going to call it success, and we'll make the page.tsx over here. Now inside of here, let's export default function and say success page. And then inside of here, we're just going to return a div that will say something like an H1 tag saying, I don't know, payment successful. And then below this, we can add a P tag that will say, thank you for your purchase. Your order is being processed, or something like that. Then below this, we definitely want to navigate them back to the home page if we can, or to the products page actually. So I'm going to put a link over here, and we'll import this from next link, and we'll add an href to the products page. And inside of this, we want to navigate to the, we'll say something like continue shopping. And then we can make this look like a button. Now, this is what's going to happen. Let me actually go back to our checkout action, and we want to add the success path to the success URL. What's going to happen is you're going to come over here, you're going to proceed to payment, and you're going to pay for it. And then when you go back, it's going to bring you back to this success page. If I go over here, we should now see it, right? I'm going to add some UI to it, some styling, but we should see this. Now on the background, what I want to do is if you go to the success page, I want to automatically clear your cart. So I'm going to add a use effect over here that will run whenever, I mean just once. Actually, I'll pass the clear cart as well to the dependency array. So let's call the use cart store hook, and let's get the clear cart function, and I'll pass it over here. And every time we call this use effect, we just want to clear the cart. So you see that automatically. I also need to make this into a client component. Sorry. So use client. So automatically it will clear the cart. It doesn't matter what I do. I'm going to add new items, and you should see that if I go to the success page, it should clear that cart. Perfect. Now let's add some styling for this. I'm going to add some styling, and I'll be back in a second. Perfect. As you can see, it isn't a lot of styling, a lot of classes, but it makes it look a little bit better. You can make this look however you want, but you can click here and continue shopping. Now let's test this whole checkout process again. And let me just buy a bunch of these shirts, and let me go over here, proceed to payment. Let's put that same card number over here. I'll just put another random at gmail.com. Then I'll put this. I'll put 0328 again, or 29. I'll put whatever as well. Choose another, and I'll click pay. Now we should go back to the success page when this is done, and our cart should be cleared. Perfect. So this is basically it for the coding portion of this video. Now, this is a long project, I recognize, but it's also not that hard to complete. I believe that it's a lot of UI and a lot of just like working with Stripe. We don't even have a database for this project. I thought a lot about adding the products to a database, but I realized that it's a lot better to just create them in your Stripe account so that they're perfectly in sync. So if you wanted to expand this project, I would say, which I always recommend after my videos so that you can also practice stuff on your own, I would recommend adding possibly an account, right? So, the ability for users to sign into this website and see past orders and stuff like that. If you want to do that, that would be awesome. I think it would be a great addition to this project, which, by the way, I think this project is already resume ready and you can already publish this and brag about it to all of your employers if you want to. So now that we're done with the coding portion of this video, let's work on deploying this so that users can actually access this in real life. So in order to deploy our application, we first have to convert our Stripe account into a real Stripe account. So this Stripe account is in test mode, and you can see that we're using test data, and to accept payments, I need to complete my business profile. So technically, Stripe is just for businesses, right? So you need to click here on complete profile, and it's going to ask some information about your business. Now, as you can see, I have a couple businesses here that I already have, but you want to just click on create a new business. But again, this can be an individual business type. So when you put on business type, it's going to ask when you click this, you put here individual, you choose the country and you choose sole proprietorship or individual. Unless you actually have a company or you are a nonprofit, you choose the other options. Now, I'm just going to click continue to show you guys a couple things. We'll get to business details. And this is all information that you have to put yourself. So put your name, your province, your country, whatever. Then they'll have other information as well. I'm not going to fill all this up because then it will get to a point where you have to add your bank and stuff that I don't want to show myself doing. But I'm going to actually use one of my business accounts. I want you to just follow this process over here. And again, you don't have to have a business to do this. So don't worry. You just put it as a sole proprietorship and it should be good to go. Perfect. Now I have linked another one of my accounts and we get to the tax calculation. Now you choose whatever one makes sense for you. Since we're selling tangible goods, you need to choose general because then it'll be actual goods that you like. The taxes are different, right? Obviously, if you're selling software or if you're selling like a bag or a computer, so you need to make it be whatever you think matches more with your store. Then I'm going to click continue. You can choose this thing, which is completely optional, but basically you can say that a fraction of your revenue will go to fund permanent carbon removal, which is something that can help climate change. So if you want to do that, feel free to do that. I would say, I don't know, I wouldn't do that because it's just out of revenue, maybe out of profit, but out of revenue, that's a lot. So I'll say no thanks. Now we get to the review and submit. I blurred obviously my information, but we'll scroll to the bottom and we'll click on agree and submit. So what this will do is it is going to officially create our account. As you can see, our account is now active, which is great. We have $0 and people can actually buy from our website. But obviously our website is not published yet, but you can see it's not in test mode anymore, meaning that you can't buy something using the fake credit card that I mentioned. So now what we want to do is actually deploy this, and we're going to deploy this to Vercel since we're using Next.js. I think it's what makes the most sense. So I'm going to go to Vercel.com, and if you don't have an account on Vercel, I recommend signing up, especially with GitHub, because that's how we're going to be deploying it. Perfect. So I just logged into my Vercel account, and I want to create first an actual Git repository for our project. Now, the reason for that is because how this deployment process is going to work is we're going to have our code in GitHub. It doesn't have to be a public repo. I'm making it public so that you guys can see the code as the code that I put in the description, but you can make it private as well. And since we connected our Vercel account with GitHub, we will have access to that. And every time we push code into our GitHub repository, it will automatically trigger a redeployment of our app so that the users can see the most up-to-date version. So let's give a repository name to this. I'm gonna call it Ecommerce Next.js full stack app, something like that. And then I'm going to make it public, and I'm going to click on create repository. Then we want to copy all of this over here, go back to our code, and I want to do something first. So we have this .env file. So in general, if you have a .env file, it doesn't matter if it's a local or if it's a real .env. You want to make sure you come over here. So to basically prohibit any .env files from appearing on the GitHub repository, we'll just add a .env and then put an asterisk in the end so that it catches those files as well. Now those files won't, this .env wouldn't go anyways, but I'll make sure you add this. I don't even know. Oh yeah, actually they already have a .env at the bottom. So yeah, it wasn't gonna be sent anyways. So let's go ahead and add this. I'm gonna say git add dot. Then I'll paste all of the commands that we got from the GitHub repository, and I'm gonna press enter. Now it should have pushed everything into our GitHub repository. Let's refresh this, and yeah, it has. And now what this means is if we go back here to our Vercel app and I click add new project, you should see that the new repository that we have should appear over here. I'm gonna click on import, and it's going to automatically import our project. I'm going to keep the project name the same, and you choose the framework that you're using. Obviously for this project, we're using Next.js. All of these other things remain the same, but we do want to add environment variables. So we'll put here all of the environment variables that we have in our application. So more specifically, I have this Stripe secret key that I definitely want to keep over here. So I'll copy that, and I'll copy this as well. Now let's go back over here. And we want to add also the next public base URL. Now this next public base URL, it actually shouldn't be localhost 3000. Now the reason for that is because this isn't our URL when we deploy. Our URL is going to have a different name. Now we don't know the name yet, so I'm going to keep this as localhost 3000 for now. I'll keep it like this as well, and we can update that after we get the actual URL. So we'll keep this like this. We'll click deploy, and it will start deploying the project. Now, when it's done, it might have a build error. I actually hope it has a build error so that I can show you guys myself debugging it. I usually like when this happens, but hopefully as well, it doesn't have any issues and we actually see the project being deployed. So I'll be back in a second when it's finished deploying. Awesome. As you can see, we did get some build errors. And yeah, I always get these build errors whenever I try deploying, just because I forget some stuff when I'm actually coding. So the first error is clear cart is assigned a value but never used. So let's go there to the checkout page. Let's see, checkout/page. Apparently, yeah, I called clear cart, but I didn't use it. So let's delete that. Now let's go back over here. Now in our layout, those two, I think fonts were never used. So let's go back to layout and let's delete them. By the way, if you want to add some metadata for this project, definitely do so. Change this to like my store or something like this and say buy cool projects or products and stuff like this. Let's see what else. Styles is defined but never used. This is also in the page.tsx. So I need to delete this and I need to go to the page.tsx. Where did I define styles here? So I defined styles up here. So I'm going to delete this and let's go back. This is pretty much it. So we fixed all of the errors that came. So if there's an error with TypeScript or just an error with ESLint, it's going to fail deployment. And that's the reason, like the 99% of the reason why I always fail deployment first try. But that's fine. Now we should be done. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to add the changes, commit, and say fix issues or something like that. And then I'm going to push the changes to our GitHub repo. Now, if we go over here and we click deploy again, it should have the new changes. Let me just check to see if they actually updated. Yeah, it seems like it. So let's again try to see if it finishes deploying. So I'll be back when this is done. seems like the issue is with this page over here, and I think I know what the issue is. So this is a server component, right? That's why we're using the params from the props instead of just using the use params hook. But this actually returns a promise. So instead of saying params ID string, we should say params promise and then pass the ID string. And then this means that we need to actually grab the ID through an await. So I'm going to say await params over here, and I'll grab the ID, and then we could just use the ID instead of params.id. Perfect. I think this should work. So let's actually say git add, git commit -m fix, and then let's push. And hopefully, if we go back over here, let's see if the change just happened. Yeah, it did. So let's click deploy, and hopefully this should be the last time that I come back here to tell you guys that we've had an issue with the deployment. So I'll be back in a second. And perfect, we have successfully deployed our project. I'll click on continue to dashboard, and I'll click visit, but you should see that we'll have an error. Actually, we didn't. Oh no, we'll have an error, but only if we try checking out, because then if we try checking out, it will bring us back to the, you'll see, it will bring us to the, if we try paying for this, it will bring us back to the local host and not to this actual website, which isn't something you want to see when someone actually purchases your product. So what we need to do is, now that we have the URL for our website, which obviously you need to, if you want to put it your own domain, you can do that. We'll copy this. We'll come back over here. Then we're going to click on settings. We'll go to environment variables, and we'll update this environment variable over here so that it doesn't use localhost. It actually uses this over here. We'll click save. And what this means is that now when a user actually checks out, they will be redirected back to this page and not to their localhost, which probably will just break the website, right? So this is basically it. We have successfully deployed the website and the project is done. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know this is a pretty long video, but I hope you actually learned a lot from it and understand how to build a full stack Next.js project after watching this. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like down below and comment what you want to see next. Sorry if my voice sounded a bit weird this video. I don't know if you've noticed, but I was extremely ill. So recording this was really tough. It gave me a bit of brain fog, and I don't know, I just kept coughing the whole video. Obviously I cut out all of that, but I had to crank this video out for you guys because I was really excited for it. So if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like down below and comment what you want to see next. Subscribe because I'm posting every week, and I have a lot of these projects. I'm posting a lot of projects nowadays. So if you're interested in seeing more projects, feel free to subscribe and keep on the lookout for more projects just like this one. So thank you so much for watching, and I see you guys next time.